Good to see you, Byron.
We're on.
You too, Andy. You too.
Oh, I think we made it just in the nick of time. It's the late night happy hour. This is very exciting. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky, and of course, I do not need to introduce the guy in the middle of the screen with us right now, one of the great Lakers of the Showtime era. Everybody, please welcome the great Mychal Cooper to tonight's show. So excited to have him here. Coop, I'm just kidding. That's not Mychal Cooper.
I was about to say, I got a whole lot lighter. Coop's a lot darker than me.
Well, we thought it was a lighting issue. How's it going? How you been, Coach?
You know what? I've been good, Brian. I can't complain. You know, life is good. Getting married in about 12 days from here with my beautiful fiancée, Cecilia Gutierrez. And, you know, I get to see my granddaughters almost once a week and play golf once a week or whatever. So, I mean, life is good. I can't complain.
Well, that actually answers one of the questions I was going to ask, whether or not you were able to hit the links through all this, because I know what that is in your life. So I'm glad to hear that that's being maintained. I'm also actually, frankly, glad that you're able to not go through with the wedding like this would have stopped you from getting married, but literally being able to pull off a wedding in the middle of this.
Well, you know what, Andy, it's funny because it's just going to be her and I in the fishing. He's going to marry us, and we can't have the big wedding that we wanted, but the most important thing is that we still get married on the date that we reserved. But we're going to do basically a virtual wedding. So we're going to do the ceremony and everything, and then we're going to make it, we're going to have it videotaped and all that, and then we're going to make it, virtual for all our guests. We've already sent out invitations. They already know what link to go to, and so on July the 11th after 5 p.m., they can go on the link and they can actually see us go through the ceremony that we're going to take after the wedding at the little place we're getting married, at the little chapel, and then we're going to come home and take some more pictures and all that good stuff. So, you know what, the most important thing is that we just say our vows and get married. That's the most important thing to me.
Well, if you need any help on the tech end, be sure to call us, because we set this thing up.
I'll let you guys know.
Please do. We want to be helpful.
It lets you keep the riffraff out, though. That's the good thing. It's like, some of those hangers on that you might not actually want at the wedding. Now
I made it quite clear that I didn't want too many people. So she had a guest list of about 400 of her closest friends. And
wow.
I tried to stop it at about 200, but it just kept growing. Yeah, I don't know if we're
sure
good friends, so I told her this is all up to you. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's just her and I, at the wedding, and we'll send out the pictures and all that good stuff.
I don't know 400 people.
That's what I said.
Like, literally.
I said I don't have 400. I don't know 400 people, let alone have 400 good friends, let alone 400 friends. So
I mean, and you've met through your time in the NBA. And
listen, I have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't have 400 friends.
Like that.
At least I don't think I do.
You're about to find out.
Yeah, well, we were about to find out, but now things have changed, so it's all good.
That's nuts, man. But it is nice though that you guys are able to find a way to do this that makes everybody happy. And I mean, it's just such a weird time that we're living in right now. It's
crazy. I know you guys, have never seen nothing like this. I've never seen anything like this. Never thought I would experience anything like this. Going through a pandemic the way we are right now, and some of the other issues we have in our country as well. It has been a crazy, crazy time over the last few months. And, I'm one of the most optimistic persons you'll ever find. For me, the glass is always half full. And I'm hoping that the situation that we're going through gets better, obviously, and that people will start to be a little bit safer, because now the spikes are starting to go up again, because people are letting their guards down. And when we play golf, Andy, we wear masks.
Good.
These are guys I've been playing golf with all my life, basically. But we wear our masks and we play and have a good time. And we all have our own carts, so we're not that close to each other. But when I'm not on the golf course and CC and I are going around stores and things of that nature, we got our masks on. So we're trying to be as safe as possible. We hope that everybody else out there is doing the same.
It's interesting too. Like, you were in the news a couple of weeks ago or whatever it was for we've been spending a lot of time talking about the graduates and how all these high school and college graduates and stuff can't do their walk. That includes you.
Yeah.
How is that? The whole graduating thing.
And it's great, Brian. I mean, I took 37 years to lay off and relax for a little bit and then decided to go back and get my degree. So it was something that I thought about, a few years ago. Obviously, and a lot of people know this story. When my mom was passing, that's something that she wanted me to do. And, before she passed, it's something that I promised I would do. So, when she passed, I took another year to kind of relax and just remember all the things that were so great about her, and then decided to go ahead, and at least give it a try. But the other reason I took another year off before I decided to is because I was scared as hell. To be honest with you, I was like terrified. I was like, man, I haven't been in the classroom in 30-something years. This is going to be crazy. I got to do it online, and I don't know about how I'm gonna get help if I need help. And I had a great young lady at Arizona State named Jessica Richardson, who really took my hand and kind of led me through this. And then also, Cece, my fiance, was great as far as just pushing me. You got to study for this, you got to get ready for this. So she kept me on schedule as well. So if it wasn't for those two people that I had in my corner, I don't think I could have done this. But I was determined to do it. But I was scared as hell, to be honest with you, to try to do this.
I was going to ask you that because, I mean, first of all, we've been around you enough to know you don't scare easily. That's not really your mode. But, like, it's a vulnerable position to go back to that place. I mean, like, I know, for example, in this pandemic, I've been forced to become a third grade teacher for my daughter. Mm-hmm. And, there's times where I'm going over stuff that theoretically a 9-year-old is supposed to know. I don't remember any of this. Like, I mean, at all. I mean, and again, and you're talking about not
like we should establish that.
Yeah, I mean, right. There is that, sure, but I mean, I did pass third grade at some point. But like, it's
you were sort of what do we call that? Social
push through, but passed. But like, you're going to a much higher level, and about the same amount of time has passed. And speaking of which, this is the third grader I was telling you about. That's Byron Scott. She's a Laker fan in the building. There you go. In the process of becoming one.
All right.
She loves the Lakers. But like that's a weird place to be in, I'm sure.
It was, like you said, because you're putting yourself out there, and trying to be vulnerable or making yourself vulnerable to a situation where you could fail. That was something else that I thought about too. But then I started thinking about me, and I was like, you know what, you never back down from a challenge. You've always, went ahead and tried to, accept the challenge. And if you failed, at least you knew you tried your best. And that's how I started to look at it. After I got over the fear of thinking about, man, this is going to be extremely hard. I haven't been in the classroom. The teaching and learning has probably totally changed from when I was at school. And that scared me as well. And like you just said, Andy, there was probably things that I would look at, back then that I would get. But now it was like, man, I have no clue, what they're talking about or what they're doing. The other thing that I think helped is I had great professors and teachers that were fantastic. I had one that I had a few of them, matter of fact, but they had no clue who I was. And then she finally was like, my husband, I told him who were in my class, and he went crazy and said that you were famous. So I'm so sorry for not knowing who you are. I said, no, I kind of like it that way. But it's funny when we're doing the Zoom classes, some of the students would recognize me like right away. And they would be like, oh my God, this is Byron Scott, and blah, blah, blah. And the teacher would be like, I don't have a clue who that is, which was really cool. But it was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. And the challenge of learning, new things and going through the process of going through class on a daily basis and doing this and doing the homework and getting ready for tests and getting ready for some of the other things projects that I had to do as well. it was a lot of fun, So I was happy I'm proud of myself for going back and doing it. And to be honest with you, the pandemic helped me in a sense because I had to stay home and I had nothing to do with everybody. So it really helped me my last semester.
Okay. There are a couple other things I want to ask you about this and just like what comes next and all that stuff. But we were having a debate the other day because I always think that as sports media people, we tend to overestimate how famous all sports people are. Because, like, of course, everybody, Byron Scott, like LeBron James, whatever. When you were playing with Kareem, did this ever happen where you guys would be out, you'd be eating dinner, whatever it might be, and somebody would come up to you or come up to Kareem and say, "Man, you're really tall. Did you play basketball?" Like, do people not know who Kareem was? Like, he was like the basketballiest looking basketball player I've ever seen.
I can't remember a time ever when I was in the presence with Kareem that somebody did not recognize him and say,
okay,
you're really tall. You should play basketball. He's kind of unmistakable. When he's walking through an airport, because you remember, and you guys both, Andy and Brian, you guys understand this. When we first came to the league, we didn't have charter. We were going through regular airports, getting on commercial flights. Like, the only difference was that we had the first class seats, the 12 for first class, and if it was 8, then we had the 4 rookies or whoever was the youngest had to sit and coach. So there wasn't a time ever in all the times that I played with the Lakers. 6 years of playing with Kareem that everywhere we went, everybody recognized him. It wasn't even close.
Did you go to Kareem at all for any help on your papers? Did you go for
no?
Because he's really smart.
He's extremely smart, but he's a history major. So, I was like, if I needed something on history, which I did, matter of fact, in one of the classes, but I didn't think about calling Cap and getting any help.
All right, blink twice. Blink twice if Kareem wrote one of your papers.
What'd you say, Brian?
I just said blink twice if Kareem wrote one of your papers.
He did not, so I'm trying not to do it.
No, every time
you got Kareem, paper, Byron, they can't take it away from you.
That's true. I'm done now. You're right.
Every time Kareem writes something for either like Time or Hollywood Reporter or what, I'm like, it's a joke that I've ever gotten paid to write. Like that guy is so good at writing. It's like, leave a little for the rest of us. Like, do you have to be this good at everything?
He's amazing, man. I mean, he really is. He's amazing. I mean, the books that he's written.
Yes.
If you ask him to just speak on the topic or just write on the topic, first of all, it's going to be extremely well written and well thought out before he writes it. And then when you read it, you're going to be sitting there going, Jesus Christ, this guy is.
A couple months ago, I interviewed him about a documentary that he created for History, the network, about the the first soldiers in the Revolutionary War. There were these black soldiers that a lot of people aren't aware about, fought in the Revolutionary War and literally helped found this country. Mm-hmm. And it's no surprise that Kareem would be, smart enough, well-read enough, all that to like know about these parts of history because Kareem knows everything. But on top of it, like his documentary was amazing. I'm like, dude, like stop, like enough.
My guy,
like
hey, listen, he's still the captain, no matter what.
Indeed,
he's always going to be the captain.
How did you celebrate graduating?
Well, I couldn't go out, so my fiance got me a big old bottle of wine. Matter of fact, it was a nice bottle of Silver Oak. And got me a cake and put a couple of candles on it. And we took a picture of that and we just sit there and, ate the cake. We ate dinner before that. We ate the cake and we had a bottle of wine and just brought it in that way, man. It was a nice, quiet evening, but it was very gratifying because I was able to sit back and say, man, I'm done. I got this done. I accomplished this goal. It was something my mom wanted me to do and I did it.
So is there something you plan on? I mean, are you gonna like hit the job market in the fall? I mean, what do you do with it? Is it a pride thing, or are there other things behind?
Well, Brian, first of all, yeah, it's a pride thing.
Yeah.
It's always a pride thing
sure.
when you can accomplish something like that. But as I was going through this process, the thing I started thinking about the most was coaching on the collegiate level. I said, I think that would be a lot of fun. You know, I think it would be great to lend my expertise as far as basketball is concerned, and hopefully not. And I'm not talking about, you know, one of those major, you know, colleges. I'm talking about mid-level type college, because I would love to have kids for 2 or 3 years and just not only teach them the game of basketball, but, you know, just off the court, I think is the most important. You know, teaching them how to survive when basketball is done. You know, life after basketball is, I think, the most important thing for a lot of these kids, because all these kids aren't going to make it, you know, and I know they have that dream just like I did, but the majority of these kids that play college basketball don't ever play NBA basketball. Some will play over in Europe, but I would love to be able to influence them on what to do when the basketball stops bouncing and they can still be very successful and productive citizens.
I mean, you were a 4th overall pick, so you, I think, had a pretty good idea that you were going to the NBA. But like the guys that you played with, did you get a sense that they were well prepared for life that wouldn't be the NBA while you were there?
No, because they had the same dreams and aspirations that I had, even when they weren't even starting on our college team. You know, we still had guys that felt they had an opportunity and a shot to play in the pros. You know, so yeah, a lot of these guys aren't prepared, you know, because they feel in their heart that they got a chance to make it, and so that's all they're focused on. They're like a horse in New York with those blinders on. You know what I'm saying? That's all they can focus on. And I want to try to take those blinders off, because there's a whole nother world out there that these guys got to get familiar with. And it's better to get prepared while you're in college than to wait till when you're done to try to all of a sudden get prepared for it.
What do you think that'd be different? Like, because a couple of years ago, I remember when Herm Edwards, you know, ASU, was looking to go back, and he was going to go back to college, and he got hired at ASU. And we're like, everybody was like, really? You know, been out of the game. It's like, you know, going to college, like.
Plus, he had the greatest gig in the world on ESPN. I was like,
that's true.
You got to really want
this. It's a sweet gig.
Because I would never.
He did have a really sweet gig.
It's like when Gruden left. I'm like, man, you must really want to coach, because I can tell you right now, that gig at that money, you couldn't get me out of that chair. Like, I mean, no. But guys like you are wired differently.
We really are. You know, we have that competitive nature and that competitive spirit that we want to, you know, we want something else. You know, we still have some things that we want to fulfill. And again, for me, it's, you know, that second chance of being, like I said, really to be able to help some of these young kids before they get to the NBA. Because again, you know, in the NBA, you know, especially with the Lakers, where I had all these guys that are 19 years old, and we would do drills that I told them they should have learned in high school. They should have learned in high school, you know, so they're getting away with murder because AAU coaches aren't doing their jobs, and they're letting them just do what they want. And so when I get them, I got to try to reteach them. So why not start on the collegiate level where I can get them prepared for the NBA, and the guys that don't make it, you know, I can get them prepared for life. And I think, again, that's the most important part.
And I got to ask you this, because, you know, you obviously, you know, came up and learned under Pat Riley, who was definitely a puke in a trash can kind of guy. And, you know, when you were with the Lakers, you had a reputation as a puke in a trash can kind of guy. Like, we're going to work. Like, do you think, like, is there any difficulty you think in connecting to play level, or that people would think you would have a difficulty connecting to players at the collegiate level?
I think people would think I would have, but I don't think I would have at all, to be honest with you. I think the last 3 or 4 years, just like everybody else, you know, you go through some changes, you start to reevaluate yourself and some of the things that you want to do, you know, with the rest of your life. And basically, I'm at that point where I just want to get back, you know, because I have a lot of experience. I've learned a lot, you know, good and bad over my NBA career as a player and as a coach. And I think I could really benefit a university, you know, especially these student athletes in a major way, in so many different ways, on and off the court. So I'm at that point right now. I would just love to be in these guys' company and show them what this is really all about as far as the basketball side of it, but show them also, listen, you got to be prepared just in case you don't make it. Don't do like I did, because I did just, you know, when we talked about this earlier, I put all my eggs in one basket. I got a chance to be the 4th player picked in the NBA draft, played 14, 15 years. That's like the ultimate dream, you know. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket, or you shouldn't. You know, you should put a couple of eggs in that basket when you want to make the NBA. But also, what are your other goals and dreams that you want to do just in case you don't make it? And now those are some of the points I want to get across to these student athletes.
Well, when you do get that next coaching gig, Byron, you're going to want to celebrate. And there's no better way to celebrate than ordering from vsliquor.com.
Right.
The most convenient way to get your alcohol delivered to your door. Anything you want, Byron, all right there. One click, it's on its way. And then right now, if you type in sports with that first order, you get 15% off. So vsliquor.com, keep that in mind when you're celebrating this eventual new job. You know, they've got the silver oak, I'm sure.
Okay, Andy, hold on a second. Hey, baby. VS Liquor, write it down.com.
Yes.
So we can get something.
Yes.
When I get my next job, we're going to celebrate. We're going to call them. I got you, Andy. Thank you for that.
Thank you to the future Mrs. Scott. I appreciate that.
You've done well for yourself. You know, been taking care of your money. You know, done a lot of good things. You know, guys, don't stay. You could still appreciate 15% off your first order. I mean, that.
Oh, absolutely. Is there a negotiating tool there? Can I get 20 instead, or is it just it's locked in at 15?
You know, if you drop the name Byron Scott, you might get down to 20. Like, we can't get it for you, but you might be able to handle it for yourself.
Don't tell him Mychal Thompson.
Silas is very good at negotiating. He might get him knock it down to 20%.
Dude, more power to you. Please
guys with money don't keep their money by spending an extra 15% on tequila.
That's right. You try to keep as much as you can.
Explain to everybody what you are drinking, because this is a related drink.
This is a Rock and Hammer Pinot Noir. I love red wine. I love all wine, to be honest with you. But this is from a very good friend of mine and one of the best coaches in NBA history, Greg Popovich, who has his own vineyard. And he gave me a couple of cases a few years ago. And so I pull it out every now and then and, you know, have me a couple of glasses or a bottle, you know.
For important occasions like this one.
Yeah, you know. But listen, I was sitting there waiting to come on and Brian said, you know, you got like 10 minutes. You can go, you know, go do what you want, get something to drink, a little vodka or whatever. Yeah. I said, oh, you know what? Let me go get me a glass of wine. So here I am.
We're going to talk about Mychal Thompson specifically later in the show, but specific to wine, has he ever paid off your Camus bet?
No, not yet. So you know what that means.
Of course he hasn't.
You know what that means. When this is all said and done, when COVID is over, you know, we done with this pandemic, I'm gonna have to whip his ass again. I mean, I'm gonna have to do it because I haven't got my wine. He owes me a case. I haven't got it. Yeah, I'm gonna give him one last chance when I know this is about to open up a little bit, and I'm gonna call him and say, MT, if I don't get my wine in the next week or so, I'm gonna give you my address. You can just send it. You ain't got to see me. But if I don't get it, I'm gonna have to whip his ass.
Explain to people what the bet was, so they know, you know, why the dirt cheap Mychal Thompson is not paid up yet.
Mychal Thompson and I made a bet that Tiger Woods would not win another major, and he said, "Period, ever." You know, a matter of fact, another tournament. That's what he said. Another tournament ever. And I said, "Let's bet." I said, so we bet a case of Camus, which is one of my favorite wines. And he said, "Okay." So when Tiger won, you know, I called him up. I said, "You know, you owe me a case." He said, "No, I said another major." I said, "That's not what you said." I said, "So don't have me get mad up here, Michael. I have to come to the station." I said, "You said another tournament, so I want my case of wine." And
well,
then
you
obviously,
and then he won the other major anyway. So
and then he won another major anyway. He's right. So I'm like, all right. So you know, I've waited all this time, and I will take in consideration that, you know, over the last 3 months we've all had to stay home. But, you know, as soon as this is kind of lifted and we go back to some sense of normalcy, because I don't want this to go back to normal. I really don't. I don't want this to go back to normal. Forgive me for kind of jumping off, because normal was the worst air quality in the United States, and all of a sudden it was one of the best. We still have a tremendous homeless situation problem here in traffic. So I want it to go back to semi-normal. I want all three of those things to be better than they were when we got into this.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about the air quality. My wife has asthma, and for like the first couple months of the pandemic, she had no outbreaks at all because nobody was driving anywhere. Exactly. And she had, in years, I have not seen her having this few problems with asthma. I mean, it really speaks to just the air quality and what, you know, people like us who've been living in LA for a long time, like what we've been living in it and doing to our lungs
for so long. Yeah, I mean, within a 2 week to 4 week span, I mean, it went from the worst to the best that quick. I mean, it cleared up, and it was it was beautiful. You would go outside, or like I would go on our balcony, and you just look over the balcony and just look at the air quality, and you can see forever. So if we go back to some sense of normalcy, those three things I would like to not go back to normal.
It's funny, like, it doesn't take much, like, to remind all of us that the earth can do without us. If, like, we're not careful, it'll be just fine the minute we go.
It'll be just fine is right.
Yeah.
It'll be just fine is right.
Hey, I'm interested too. You kind of mentioned the time that we're in, and there was a lot of news today about, this week, guys being able to put some kind of message where their name would go on the jerseys once they get down to Orlando. Ramona and Zach Lowe at ESPN reporting that they're going to put Black Lives Matter on the courts that they're going to be playing on. When you look at the kind of the voice that athletes are using right now, really across sports, even college sports, which is really great to see.
It's amazing.
As somebody who kind of came from a different era when that maybe wasn't as easy to do, or but you saw a lot of stuff too. What's your reaction to kind of the moment that we're in and the way that athletes are using their voices?
I love it. I love it. I think our guys should speak up because they do have a platform. They're some of the most well-known personalities in the world, and why not use that for the good? And I think LeBron has been doing that, in my opinion, for a while. He's been speaking his mind. He's not a political figure. He's not into politics, but he speaks his mind on what he thinks is right and what's wrong. And you gotta respect his opinion. So I love the fact that we have so many athletes now speaking up. This is a movement right now. I talked to Keyshawn and LZ, a while back, and I said my only hope right now is that 28 years ago, we had this same thing with the Rodney King, incident. And after a few months, maybe 6-7 months, or maybe even a year, it kind of went away. I don't think that's happening with this now. I think this situation is here to stay. I think our guys are going to keep their voices alive. I think other people are going to keep protesting and demanding some changes from our government when it comes to some of these laws. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see right now because, again, my mom told me a long time ago, without going into the racism or anything like that, she just told me that, you're not better than anybody else and ain't nobody better than you. You treat everybody the way you want them to treat, that you want to be treated. And it wasn't about black and white, and that's what she was all about. I just want you to treat people the way you want them to treat you. And that's all basically we are asking for when you really when it really boils down to it is equality. Just treat everybody equally. It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, you were mentioning too, like dealing with this in the Rodney King verdict and the riots that came from that.
Right.
You were in LA when that was happening, and
right.
So was I. I was attending USC at the time, so I was living in the middle of it. And I mean, one of the reasons that I have hope and optimism this time around is just the increased unity that you see between races, between backgrounds, all these different people coming together on this. Whereas in '92, so much of what was, being demonstrated over and then rioting and everything was that racial tension to begin with, like,
right.
Black, white,
right.
also Black Korean
right.
in South Central.
Right.
And there's so much more unification. And, to be totally blunt, there's more white participation. And that's ultimately the way this country is structured right now. That is necessary in order to make something actually happen. You need white people coming in and looking to do something about it. And that seems to be happening right now.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. Like you said, Andy, one thing that I love about a lot of the protesting that I've seen on TV, not only here in the United States, but other countries as well, is the unity. And like you said, it's everybody coming together. It's not just blacks marching. It's so many different nationalities when you watch it nowadays. And I think that's a beautiful thing that everybody understands that what we witnessed in May, with George Floyd losing his life the way he did is wrong. you know, and those guys have to be held accountable. And I think it would go away if it was just African Americans that were protesting, but that's not the case. That's not the case anymore. And I think now we're in a world where this generation is totally different than our generation.
Yeah.
You know, and the generation before us. So you're going to have, you know, millions of people that are marching and protesting that are all different races, but they all stand for the same thing, and that's equality, and that's all we're talking about.
It is an amazing moment, like when you kind of put together like it all. There are a lot of things I like about the pandemic, but I think to some degree the attention that was focused on George Floyd and those 8+ minutes is related to the pandemic. People were home. People couldn't really go anywhere, and you couldn't do anything but watch that and absorb it. Like, as you know, again, as from what like Andy was saying, like as a white person, as a non-minority, just be like, and there was no, but he was doing this, or it was just, 8.5 minutes of just that. And you could
8:46 to be exact.
And you can't ignore it. And I think, because the national attention was focused, being able to be focused on one thing in a way that it was unprecedented, whether it was with Rodney King or Eric Garner or so many other people. It's if there is a silver lining, if there is an upside that, you look back in history and say, maybe we're lucky that one thing came along at a time with another, like the one good thing that came out of it. It could be this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I was actually thinking about that, the idea that 20, 50 years from now, like George Floyd's going to be thought of as a historical figure. And, what happened to him it's a tragedy. It's an outrage, but he's going to be remembered as a pivotal point in history. And, now I think there's just a responsibility to make sure that the most can, come from that tragedy, because it's going to be a tragedy no matter what.
Absolutely. And I've heard some people try to, put him up against, Martin Luther King and guys like that. Let's not go overboard, as far as that's concerned. But I agree with you, Andy, as far as you're going to remember him for a movement that had the possibilities of changing the world into a much better place. And it's the same thing that Dr. Martin Luther King was trying to do for many, many years. It was just not the right time. This just seemed to happen at the right time, unfortunately, for Mr. Floyd. But like you said, this has gotten to the point where black people have said, okay, enough is enough. And not only black people, white people, Korean people, Latino people, they said enough is enough, especially, the brutality that has been amongst blacks and brown people from the police forces across this country. They're tired of it. They're done with this.
There's obviously of far less significance, but it is amazing how, like, timing, coincidence, all these things play a role. Andy and I were kind of talking about this before the show. If the Lakers don't have access to Magic Johnson through the draft, the weird coin flip and all that, they probably don't trade Norm Nixon, who was pretty flipping good. Like, people don't remember, like, you got to go back and look at Norm's numbers.
We recently looked this stuff up for a piece that we wrote for The Athletic, about basically the idea that if the Lakers, in order to get your jersey retired, Laker otherwise, so given how successful the Lakers have been, there are a lot of really good players who are never going to get their jersey retired the way they would for just about every other franchise in the league, because you have to be in the Hall of Fame. So we came up with the idea of a Ring of Honor. Congratulations, you made it, Byron. You're in.
It's really been a great month for you. I mean, really a great one.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
We were going through a bunch of different, like, candidates, like those type of guys, and we looked up Norm's numbers, and we were like, oh my God! Like, we both knew he was good, but looking over his numbers, oh my God, he was really good, particularly in the playoffs. And like Brian said, like, most teams don't happen to have the greatest point guard who ever lived playing alongside Norm Nixon, don't have the ability to trade for you. Like, it's weird how just timing, in any other year, you aren't likely a Laker.
Right.
You ever think about how that plays out if you don't end up here? Or, well, you're still here, but not here.
You know what? I think about it every now and then, to be honest with you, B, not now, but I used to back in my day, is that, because I got drafted by the Clippers. And I used to always say, man, if I would have stayed the Clippers, I probably would have, averaged 21, 22, 23 points for my career, but I wouldn't have probably never gotten the playoffs. I would have never won a championship. And, made an all-star team or two, being the leading scorer on the team or whatever. But I wouldn't have the success that I had as a player in my mind, because, again, coming in from college, to me, it still was about winning. So when I got traded from the Clippers to the Lakers, man, it was the happiest day in my life. And Jerry West, and I think both of you guys know this story. Jerry West called me one day, and he said, we've been trying to make this trade for a couple of weeks, and we're gonna try again today. It was like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I was working out. I hadn't signed with the Clippers, and I was holding out. And he said,
I don't blame you.
I was holding out. Because the first player, Ralph Sampson, who was the first pick, was signed. The second player, Steve Stepanovich from Indiana, was signed. Rodney McCray was the third player from Houston. They had the first and third pick. I was number 4. I can't remember who was 5. I think it was Russell Cross from Purdue. He was signed. So the top 10 players were signed except me. And I was asking exactly a little bit more than the 5th player and less than the 3rd player. I thought it was very reasonable. Wouldn't sign me. So, Jerry West calls me and he says, we've been trying to make a trade for you for the last couple of weeks. And if it doesn't happen by 3 o'clock today, it's not going to happen. Now I'm thinking, that's 5.5, 6 hours from now. I was about to go work out. I'm going to sit my butt at home until 3 o'clock. I told my mom that was Jerry West on the phone. And she said, what'd he say? I said, he said, they're trying to make a trade for me, Mom. And my mom was just, just like I am now. Don't worry, they're going to call. I was like, okay, all right. 3 o'clock comes, no call. 3:30, I get up, and I'm like, Mom, I'm still a damn Clipper. I got I'm still a Clipper. I said, so I'm going to go work out, And I walk outside, and just before I get to the car, my mom comes on the porch and says, telephone. And I go back in the house, and I get on the phone. It's Jerry West at 3:45 now. He says, congratulations, son. You are now a Los Angeles Laker. And I almost, did number 1 and number 2 on myself. Because I was so happy.
Well, I mean, it was a good strategy, by the way, Byron, of just asking Donald Sterling for a fair contract. Yeah, because that in and of itself is going to keep it from happening. I mean, that's a very good way.
Obviously, it was a great strategy, and it worked out extremely well in my favor.
Just asking for what you're worth. That's a great way to get Donald Sterling.
I'm not asking for more than the 3rd player, but I'm asking for more. They were offering me, I swear to God, Andy, they were offering me what the 9th player had gotten in the draft or something.
That high.
Really? I'm like, really?
I can be honest. You're right. I'm surprised it was insane.
And that was kind of high. You're right. You're right. Knowing Mr. Sterling now,
he must have thought well of you. He was willing to go to 9.
9th player from what year, Byron?
Yeah, it was 83 that time. So
okay, that's not bad. I'll tell you what, if you'd have stayed a Clipper, all that liquor you'd be getting from vsliquor.com, you'd be ordering it out of sadness. Drown your sorrow. You'd want that 15% off because Donald Sterling never paid you.
You're right. I would want that 15% off.
It's a helpful thing. But if you were a Clipper, you'd need it. It just tells you where you are. But I once asked Kobe this question because, and you played with him, you coached him, you knew him,
coached against him,
you knew knew what he was. And I asked because I find this fascinating, this whole idea of how sometimes you end up in one spot, just the luck of this. And I said, so let's say Jerry West doesn't perform his Jedi mind trick on John Calipari. The Nets draft you. It's not a terrible organization. They had some good years, you saw that. You helped.
Yeah, I did.
And so, I asked him, do you still win 5 titles? He said, absolutely.
I was about to say, I know what he said.
I said, how? He said, I'd have figured it out. And obviously he believes 100% that that's true. It's probably not in, 5, but he probably figures out how to way to win 1 or 2. But those kinds of little things, if Jerry West calls me up and thinks a trade's a really good idea, I know I'm not smart enough to know anything but I should probably keep the guy that I have. If they want that guy, you know what?
Or just
I'm going to draft that guy.
Right.
Or just the timing too. The timing of Kobe coming out at a time when high school players, this was uncommon, but for a guard, it was unheard of.
Right.
I mean, people forget Vlade was really good.
Yes, he was.
I remember, because I was out here. I remember when I heard the news of that trade, I was like, wait, they traded Vlade for a high school kid? Like, seriously? And I mean, you obviously you don't.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, Jerry West better know what he's doing. But like, this was unheard of. But like 2 years later, I don't know if you can get Calipari off Kobe, because it's just starting to become more common for these high school guys to come out.
Right.
Like Calipari may very well have called his bluff, like called everybody's bluff a couple years later, just because you don't even think about the risk with somebody like Kobe. Like the timing was perfect for Kobe.
Yeah. It's funny because Jerry West, when he worked him out, he came to me the next day at Loyola Marymount, and he said, I just saw the best workout I've seen in my whole life. And I was like, who are you talking about, Logo? He said, this kid named Kobe Bryant. And I said, really? He's like, really? High school kid? I said, high school? He's like, yeah. Kobe Bryant is going to be unbelievable. And I was like,
because my understanding of that story is he lit up Cooper in that.
Yeah, because he was playing Coop one-on-one.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do.
And no, that's not easy. And Coop was just messing around the first couple of points, and then Coop, got serious and tried to guard him, and he couldn't really guard him. So Jerry was like, best work I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when we had him at training camp, he had already broke his wrist, playing ball at Venice Beach. So I just saw him working out and everything. And I was like, okay, you can tell this kid got some skills. But when he got it off and we were at practice, I was like, oh my God, this kid's going to be unbelievable. And he was that.
What does it look like? Because you play with Magic, you play with Kareem, because you guys are all good. I mean, like, you don't make the NBA, even as a last guy on a roster. You're really good at what you do. When somebody is different like that, what does it look like? Whether it's Kobe, Magic, like what do you see as somebody who has reached that level yourself?
It's hard to explain what it looks like, but you can just see it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But when he's on the court, you can just see that he has something a little bit different. I saw it every day with Irvin. My rookie year coming in, and I'm like, wow, I'm on the court with Magic and Worthy and Coop and Kareem and all these guys. And then we start playing 5-on-5, and I'm on the second team, and I'm guarding Mike McGee, but I'm watching Magic, and I'm going, oh my God, I've watched this guy on TV for 2 or 3 years, but man, it's not the same. In person, he's much better than you really give him credit for when you're watching on TV. Kobe was the same, just in practice his rookie year, not playing because, we had Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones. Myself and Derek Fisher were basically coming off the bench. Derek Fisher was Nick's backup. I was Eddie Jones' backup. But in practice, Coach Dale Harris would put me and Derek and Kobe on the same team. And then this kid just would go after Eddie Jones. And Eddie Jones would tell you in practice, man, take it easy, man. It's just practice. And we were like, no. We getting ready. And Kobe, you can just tell then. I was like, man, this kid's going to be.
Again, Eddie Jones, another guy.
And Eddie Jones was no joke.
He was really good.
Really good. He was an all-star. But Kobe in practice looked at him like, I got to get him. And he would go after him every day.
That was, too, like another moment where, like, I recognized, okay, the organization, they must really – I mean, Kobe was starting to show signs anyway. You were starting to see where this was going. But just like the idea of, okay, they know what this is, because fans were mad when Eddie Jones got traded. Like, there are still fans that we hear from on Twitter that are like, you know what, it worked out great, and we know who Kobe was, and we know, like, this was the right move, but I'm still mad. Like, I'm still mad about Eddie Jones.
Championships later, why are you still mad?
Because they loved Eddie. Like, they just loved Eddie Jones.
Like, they loved Eddie and still said, listen, it was the right thing to do.
Yes, but like,
so
Laker fans in LA, like they really grew attached to Eddie Jones. Like again, like they understand like
this is another thing like just like of how blessed this organization is. Like you think of all the really good players that have been traded away for like Hall of Fame guys. Like we talked about Vlade, Norm Nixon, and Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
10 minutes. And like all dudes who are all-star caliber players or just all-stars who like, oh, well, I got a better guy. It's like, what do you want? We got a better guy. All right. So
that's basically what it's coming down to.
This is something else that we figured out. And correct us if we're wrong, but Kobe Bryant, obviously the captain of your gives himself the green light shoot team. Like you weren't telling Kobe like, okay, back off a little bit. Why don't you? He's going to shoot when he wants to shoot.
Right.
You coached a young J.R. Smith, right?
Yes.
You had a young J.R. You coached Dion, right? You had Dion Waiters.
Yeah.
You had Nick Young.
Yes.
Who
Jordan
else?
Clarkson.
Jordan Clarkson, right?
Yes.
He's tough to keep from shooting. Who else makes your I'm giving myself the green light to shoot team? Are we forgetting anyone here? Those are some shooters.
Let me see. No, you pretty much said them all.
And Kobe's obviously different because Kobe had the greenest of lights, but Kobe earned the greenest of lights. But then there are guys who just sort of have decided, my light's pretty green. Yeah. I got a really green light going. Where
JR had a green light that was a real light green. It wasn't that dark green. Kobe had the dark green light to shoot.
Right.
JR well, like his light green.
Well, JR's is like in between. JR's is in between, like when, or it's like when the light is shifting from like yellow to green.
Yeah, kind of like that. But Kobe had the ultimate green light. There's no doubt about that. And like you said, when you play as long as he played, and when you win as much as he wins, when you work as hard as he worked, he's kind of earned that.
Now, when you had JR, though, he hadn't quite earned that yet. So
no, he hadn't quite earned it. I had to bench JR a couple of times because he didn't earn it. And I was telling him, listen, his dad was in the stands telling him to shoot the ball every time he got it. So he was listening to him. But he didn't understand. His dad couldn't put him in and out of the game either. Right. I could. So I would take him out.
When I was playing on the 8th grade team in middle school, my friend Mychal, every time he got the ball,
he shot it.
He'd be yelling, "Shoot, Mychal, shoot!" Yeah. It's just a dad thing.
That kind of sounds like Mr. Smith when we was in New Orleans. I'll tell you what. He is one of my favorite people. J.R. Smith really is. We all obviously we traded him as well, and we were able to get Tyson Chandler, and then we were able to build a team in New Orleans. And J.R. went to Denver and had some great games in Denver. And him and I, never butted heads. He was young. Matter of fact, I think as we went on, the respect even grew even more. For one another. He's a terrific dude. I'm happy right now that the Lakers signed him.
We were just going to ask.
I know, losing Avery Bradley is a big loss, in my opinion, with the Lakers because of what he does on the defensive end. And he'll knock shots down for you on the offensive end, but what he does on the defensive end, I think, is the difference. Now, JR is not that defensive player that Avery Bradley is, but he definitely is a guy that can light it up when he gets open shots.
Now, when you have to pick a guy, where we are in the season, where things are in the world right now, it's like you can't. The rules say you can't just go get anyone and all that. When you want to replace a guy like Avery Bradley, do you want somebody who, you can kind of like, what are you looking for? Because JR, like in theory, you may not need him much in the playoffs. And some degree, maybe hope that you don't need him. Guys have been played NBA in a couple of years.
Right.
But like you can picture him coming off the bench in 1 or 2 games, giving you 10 quick points in 12 minutes, making an impact. And like if that happens twice in the playoffs and you completely got your money.
Then that's gravy. That's gravy. I think when you lose a guy like Avery, what are you looking for? Obviously, you would like to get somebody who's comparable to what he did for the team on both ends of the floor. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is most of those guys are already on teams. So you're not going to get somebody. You're not going to get somebody of that caliber. So you're going to have to take the good with the bad. And with JR, like you just mentioned, he's a guy that can literally, if you have 15 or 20 postseason games, he can literally win 3 or 4 games for you in a 10-minute span because of the way he can light it up. So just having him on the floor is a threat. Everybody on the floor knows if he catches it from 3-point range, he can light it up. So you can't leave him. You got to give him that respect. So he's going to help LeBron and AD with the spacing on the offensive end. But then on the defensive end, he like I say, he hasn't played in a couple of years, and he was never a great defender, but he was always somebody who I've known in the gym that could defend when he wanted to, and that's something that he's going to have to do when the Lakers are in the playoffs.
All right, now I want to. We had, and I think we sent this to you before. I'm going to show it to you because the people you can't see what the people on the screen are saying. I got a couple things we got to talk about first. So here's Byron Scott. I'll show you the picture that we've got. You see that? You see that? That's you in 1989 with Roy going on the Roy Firestone hosted Lakers pregame show, which just goes to show what a BFD the Lakers were at that time that Roy freaking Firestone was hosting your pregame show.
Man, I thought Gear was a good get, but I mean, Roy Firestone.
Roy is big time.
That is a very casual look that you've got going.
You know what? It's funny because Silas, when he first saw that, was like, "Man, look at you! You got a tank top on with your gold chain." Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very fashionable, I guess, at the time in my 6th year in the NBA. I think if I had to redo that all over again, I would probably have a collared shirt on, with a jacket, looking at least somewhat professional. Right there, I don't know what I look like. I guess I look like I'm about to go play ball.
Well, you look like a guy, frankly, who's in really good shape. Like I sort of get where you were coming from. Like if I looked like that, I'd probably be wearing the same thing.
Yeah, actually, Byron, is that you could still wear that shirt. And
I can still. It don't look the same, but I can still wear it. But it
probably closer than Andy and I would like to admit. Now, Mychal was also on the pregame show, and I'm showing you that. Yeah. And there's Mychal, and they have him labeled on the show as the Minister of Culture from the Bahamas. They had all kinds of stuff when Mychal did an interview with Roy Firestone. Now I'm going to play, at least try to play for the people, what a clip of you responding to tall tales, perhaps, that Mychal Thompson was telling on this pregame show. So I'm not sure you're going to be able to hear it, but hopefully people out there can.
Okay.
Get comfortable. Let me introduce you to what Mychal Thompson has told the team. Mychal's a expert scuba diver.
Or so he says.
So he says he can dive 100 feet deep
it's about
underwater with no scuba gear,
right now.
Which is unheard of for a human. And we know Mychal is human.
Right.
He's also said that he's been underwater in the Bahamas and ran into a great white, a couple of hammerheads,
all
sharks
at once?
of these sorts, at different times. But his last story was that he encountered being face to face with a great white. The great white charged him, and of course, Mychal Thompson, being Mychal Thompson, kicked him, and the shark left him alone. Wow. We asked Mychal how big was this shark. He said, it was two of Kareem, which happens to be 14 feet 4 inches long. So if you believe that I was in front of 7-Eleven, then you have to believe that Mychal Thompson just beat up.
All right. So my question then, and I like this picture of you, Byron, so much. I'm going to keep you in here and you up on top, and then Andy and me. We're going to go quad box.
All right. Hope you can pull this off.
So how full of bleep was Mychal Thompson when you played with him? And he's telling stories about great white sharks and all that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from 1 to 10, he was a 9.999. He told us the story of him fighting a 14-foot tiger shark in the Bahamas, where he basically kicked him with his fin and the shark went away. I said, first of all, when you kick in the water, it's not like that's going to hurt a person, let alone a 14-foot shark. So he has so many tales, guys, that we call BS on him so much it was unbelievable. But he would say it, and he would tell these stories with a straight face, and to the point where we felt he really believed that he had a fight with a tiger shark. So, most of his stories is, like I said, we took with a grain of salt because we figured that they were all lies in the Bahamas. And we would ask his brother Andy. I know you guys probably know Andy Thompson.
Yeah.
Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked Andy about the shark, and Andy said, Michael's not fighting no shark out in the water. Yeah, I mean, he just dismissed it so quick that we were like, see, we know you full of you know what. So we left it at that.
So essentially, I mean, one of my big takeaways, because we landed on this interview with you and Roy Firestone basically by accident. We were working on something different for The Athletic, and we ended up just going down a YouTube rabbit hole, and we found this. Like, Mychal has always been a weirdo. Like, that was really like my big.
You found that out now? Okay.
No, I'm just saying like how far back it goes. Like, he's always just been this major weirdo.
Oh, 30 plus years. Yeah, I mean, I think he was a weirdo when he was in junior high. I just, we didn't get to it until he got with the Lakers. But I bet if you go back to teammates when he was in Portland, you go back to Minnesota when he was in school, you go back to kids in the Bahamas, or adults now, that he knew, they all tell you he's probably pretty weird then as well.
Because like you've met Julie and you've met Clay and little Mikey and and all, like, they're not weird. I met them.
No, thank God. Listen, thank God that they got most of their mama's genes. Yeah, I mean, just thank God, because they really don't act nothing like their dad. Julie is very reserved and quiet, and when you look at Trey and Clay and MJ, MT Jr., they're all like their mom. So I just thank God that he had the ability to say, I'm not going to let them be anywhere like Mychal T. I'm going to just let them be like Julie, and that's worked out just good for him.
But also, too, like the way Mychal was describing this, it sounded like you went vacationing in the Bahamas with him. Like, what's vacationing with Mychal like?
Well, I didn't necessarily go with him. I went because I don't want to be associated with going on vacation with Mychal Thompson. We went down there because we had been going to the Bahamas for years anyway. He just happened to be going that time as well. Okay. And we all went to dinner together and all that. And by the way, he kind of walked out and stiffed us with the bill too. I just want to say.
We'll add that to your Camus tab.
That's. I was about to say that's the second reason why I'm gonna whoop his ass if I don't get my Camus, because he stiffed me out of some money in the Bahamas a long time ago.
Isn't somebody more fun to make fun of than Mychal Thompson?
No, I love. You know what? I love MT. He's a great guy, but I love making fun of him as much as I love him as a person. Mm-hmm. I love his family. I tell you what, if we didn't pull off that trade to bring him to LA, we don't go back to back. Because the one thing he bragged about all the time is that he didn't need no help with Kevin McHale. I got Kevin. I know all his moves. I guarded him in college, and we were like, yeah, okay, all right, because we don't have nobody that could guard McHale. Kirk couldn't guard him. Macy couldn't guard. We had nobody, and Mychal Thompson guarded him one-on-one and did an unbelievable job, and that's the reason we were able to beat Boston.
And yet, according to you, with Roy Firestone, he still was soft, though.
He's still soft, though. Yeah, he's still he can't take a punch.
You told us the story.
He didn't like a little girl when I hit him open hand, so he can't take a punch.
Yeah, I was going to say, you told us that story, and Michael's told us that story, and it doesn't end well for him.
No, it doesn't, and it's not going to end well if I don't get my Cayman either.
We'll make sure to let him know this. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's aware that this isn't going to end well. I mean, I feel like he's like Rocky with Clubber Lang in Rocky 3. He's just ducking you right now. Mm-hmm. He's just ducking you, and at some point, you're going to have to come out. You're going to have to emerge with like the finger pointing at him.
Well,
and you're going to have to start screaming at him.
I'm wondering if the issue with Mychal is he's just trying to look for a bargain and a way to get the Camus
at a discount.
And you could do that by going to vsliquor.com, entering sports into.
Well, he better do it.
Like, Byron, I'm telling you, if you ever start a business, you want to partner with us to be your endorsing, because like we're good. Like we can.
I know that. That sounds.
We can read Byron Scott Incorporated into pretty much anything. So let us know. You got your degree now. You're a businessman anyway. We've got some available space, and as you can tell, we're very, very good at it. So,
yes, yeah, I already knew that. I already knew that part.
All right. Well,
this has been fun.
This has been
really,
and it's
really
been a lot of fun for people watching, and we're really excited to see what comes next. I love the idea of you coaching in college. I would say if we hadn't just hired Jerry Stackhouse, you'd go to Vanderbilt because we could use somebody like that. I believe in Stack. I can't let you run Stack off.
Oh no, I wouldn't want to do that. Jerry Stackhouse, I love Jerry, so I hope he does extremely well at Vanderbilt.
He's actually
a chance. Somebody finally gave him a chance. He should have got a chance a long time ago, but good.
Like, as much as I wouldn't want to owe you a case of Camus, I really would not want to owe Jerry Stackhouse a case of Camus.
No, Jerry. Jerry has a reputation too. Now he'll knock you out too. You know, and won't apologize for it. You know, so Jerry's a tough kid, guys, and I'm calling him a kid, tough man.
No, but there's certain guys like, and I've never worked with him, but like Kenyon Martin, from everybody I know who's working with us, he's just a spectacular guy, but when you were in the locker room trying to interview him after a game, particularly when he didn't have a good one, holy bleep, it was scary. Like, he was terrifying.
He's a scary dude.
I had that experience when he was with Denver after a Clipper playoff game where he got ejected. He got into some argument with the ref, and afterwards I'm in that scrum. And I asked him, what did you say to the ref? And he just looks at me and, he's got the 3-mile stare. And he just says, nothing. I go, said nothing to the ref? And he goes, nothing. And then there's just this beat of awkward silence in the scrum. And Kenyon just declared this thing done and walked off. And I could feel like this wash of relief over all these other reporters that they didn't have to ask anything else.
I was about to say, Andy, it might have been smart on your behalf to start walking away. He didn't say anything. But luckily he got up and walked away.
Oh,
yes.
Kenyon was he was an enforcer for us in New Jersey. He was about as tough as they come. He really was about as tough as they come.
And man, I did not like having to talk to him. All right, Byron, thank you again so much.
This is great, man. Thank you so much.
I love you guys, man. It's always a pleasure seeing you guys, and just keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully when this pandemic is over, we can do a show together where we sitting right across from each other, where we can see each other in person.
Looking forward to that, man.
To do that.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Tomorrow night.
Thanks a lot. Stay safe, and congratulations on the upcoming wedding.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So tomorrow night, Andy, is who's
Jamie Maggio.
Jamie Maggio. That's right. Very cool. And we're the first person to ever come on our show and then have to go host another show. So that's going to be very exciting. So we'll do that tomorrow night. Thanks again to Byron Scott. Thanks again to vsliquor.com. And we will see everybody tomorrow.